one less thing to worry about. Last night was the first time I did Zoom support all by myself because no one signed up to help, but it was actually fine. And I feel like it's sometimes when we even have two people on these trainings, it's like kind of pointless. Like maybe right at the very beginning, it would be helpful, but it was even fine last night. And yeah, now I'm happy that I learned that, you could do these with just one person, because I feel like there was a point when we would have like 3 or 4 people doing Zoom support on a training call, which is just unnecessary.
Yeah. I'm going to the ALOA still, right? But I'm not like invited to do troll patrol or anything. So I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother asking. You guys gotta have it covered.
Yeah, I think at first we were like really like over kind of cautious about how much like security we needed, and now we're kind of like, oh yeah, it's fine. Like we had so many people doing it at first. Alrighty, are you ready?
Sure. As ready as I will be in 1 minute.
Well, we already have 22 participants. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I was
All right,
doing.
ready?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Nice to see everyone. Definitely some familiar faces, frequent flyers, I guess we'll say, of the Animal Liberation Online Assembly. We should get special backgrounds, like those Zoom backgrounds, and it should say like, ALOA frequent flyer. You can go through the fast security line and everything. Cool, nice to see everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the Animal Liberation Online Assembly. We have our early Sunday morning on the West Coast and nice brunch hour training for you all on the East Coast today. And yeah, we're going to get started in just a couple minutes. I know a lot of folks on this call have been on previous ALOA calls, so we just spend the first couple of minutes saying hi and just waiting for everyone to join and find the link and yeah, get ready. So today we are going to be using the chat, and I'm sure we all know where the chat is by now. So if you don't, you can click on the bottom of the screen. It says chat, and it will pop open a little box on the side and let us know in the chat. You could let us know where you're calling from, and also like let us know what you had for breakfast, or if you're like eating something on this call, let us know, because I always see people eating snacks and I want to want to know what they are. I'm drinking some juice. We got a free juicer on the sidewalk a few weeks ago, and so yeah, sometimes I use it. Cool, so we all know where the chat is. If you haven't already renamed yourself, you can also do that. So you can do that by clicking the 3 little dots in the top corner above your thumbnail photo, and yeah, just rename yourself what you like to be called, and maybe your pronouns and where you're calling from. Yeah, I think that's about it. We'll pretty much get started here. And just a quick reminder that even though this is an online event, we still uphold the same standards of conduct as our in-person events. So if you want to read more about the code of conduct, it's at dxe.io/conduct. But basically anyone who's not following the code of conduct will be removed from the meeting. And just a quick disclaimer as well, we've taken extensive precautions to prevent something like this, but Zoom bombing is part of our world now, and that is basically when unwelcome visitors join these Zoom rooms and try to take over the screen, usually by sharing graphic videos. So like I said, we've taken extensive precautions to prevent that, but we just like everyone to have a bit of a heads up that by being on a call like this, you kind of I guess are at risk for witnessing something like that, because we cannot guarantee that it won't happen at ALOA. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the workshop, The Internet, Asset or Weakness. And I'm really excited to introduce our presenter. I met Dan when he signed up to work on the Toronto conference last year. And even though he wasn't living in Toronto and he lived in New York, he was part of our team from, through Google Hangouts. So we weren't using Zoom. And yeah, he came to our conference, and then he went home and decided he was going to organize his own conference. So he just decided to create the Liberation New York conference. And unfortunately, just like ALC, it has been postponed until we can gather again in person, but he's definitely been continuing to take action for animals and doing lots of online trainings and volunteering. So yeah, I'm really excited to welcome Dan, and I think he's going to tell you a little bit more about himself. So help me in welcoming Dan Balsamo.
Thank you for the very warm welcome, Joanna, and the applause as well. Very nice touch. Yeah, I am Dan Balsamo. I'm from New York City, and I am an organizer with the DXC chapter here. And like Joanna said, I myself was organizing an animal liberation conference here in New York City, and we were expecting around 450-ish people, which was going to be a really big year, first year at least. And then that sort of got canceled. But before I dive into the training, I might as well just show you like my stockpile of supplies from the conference that's still in my room, and I don't have a storage facility for it yet. So that's how I'm living in quarantine. I have my boxes to keep me company. Um, yeah, so I will share my screen and I will show you guys my screen. If I could just get to know if you guys can see it.
We can see the screen.
Cool. All right. Just give me a second to get into presentation mode. All right. Yeah, it's probably taking a while. I have 75 slides. Okay. Cool. So this is the training for the asset or weakness. So in this discussion, because it will be slightly interactive, I'll be asking you guys some questions and you'll be able to respond in the chat. If you do have a question, I will be taking some breaks in between topics and asking for them so I can help answer them. And we will have probably, hopefully, time towards the end to have a quick Q&A. So if your question isn't answered, it will be kept track of and we'll get to it towards the end. But yeah, let's get into whether or not the internet can be an asset or a weakness for our movement, or maybe it's a bit both. So the first topic is how security culture relates to the internet and how we can make sure that we are safeguarding our movement even though we are online. And this is especially relevant for now when we're all on Zoom 24/7 and all at home and we have nothing else to do but be on the internet. So quickly, what is security culture? So does anyone want to maybe give a quick, brief explanation, maybe 10 words or less in the chat? Maybe not, maybe. I'll answer it as they come in. Oh, Max has said use encryption to keep data private. Yeah, so that relates to cybersecurity, which is something we'll get into. But security culture is mainly how we make sure that all of the information that we are sharing in the movement between activists and with people outside of the movement stays safe and secure, so that activists can maintain a level of um, safety even though the level of risk may be high. So it's how we respond to repression. So in any movement, especially a movement that is above ground and in the public eye, or at least we try to keep it in the public eye, there will be repression from opposition. So opposition will try and infiltrate our movement. They will try and destroy whatever work we're doing, try and get a hold of whatever sensitive information we're doing so that they can respond legally and really threaten our ability to be activists. So as we do gain size and traction within our movement, we also will have to recognize that the level of risk involved with the threat of repression also increases. It's also understanding insecure practices. So it's understanding that some of the things that we are doing may not be the best option in terms of safety, And then it's also how do we create secure practices? And then the last thing is turning them into culture. So there's a difference between practice or consciousness and culture. Practice is the individual tactic, if you will, that you use in order to maintain safety or security of sensitive information. And culture is sort of how all of that is combined and spread throughout the movement. So it's a widespread education of these tactics and used coordinated in a coordinated fashion. So I don't know if everybody was at the Paul Engler movement ecology training during one of the last assemblies on a Saturday for ALOA, but Paul Engler had said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's definitely true. And it's also true for security culture and cybersecurity as well. Because if one person is following various tactics and safety measures and no one else is, or people don't really understand them, then that person isn't going to be able to safeguard the movement alone. Everybody has to act in a coordinated way. So, how do we create this culture? One of them is trainings like this one. So, being recognizing that we do need to learn about different topics like security culture and going to trainings, actively seeking them out, and maybe even doing one yourself to challenge yourself on what you do know and what you don't know. Having conversations with people in the movement, other activists who may not know everything about security culture. No one does know everything, right? So having these conversations really ensures that everybody has an opportunity to learn from each other and learn from the experiences that others have had. And then consistent use. So, like anything else, practice makes better, at least. So, when you are practicing good security culture repeatedly for a long period of time, you get better at it, and it becomes second nature instead of simply, having to think of every single step as you go, as it might be in the start. So, who are we up against that we need to practice such strict security measures? Maybe we can get some answers in the chat. Who do you think we might be up against? Molly says industry. Sanjeev says FBI. Joanna says Jeff Bezos, definitely. Beth says evil corporations. Carla says government. Yeah, so these are all great answers to this question. Um, Mankind or Josh says harmers. So I think by that you mean people who are not necessarily in the movement who um, are maybe farmers or people who are a part of this system that um, are contributing to the problem that we're fighting against, right? So that's actually a really good example of something that we'll get into a bit later, which is nonviolent communications and how we safeguard ourselves using nonviolence. But we'll get into that a bit later in terms of our messaging. So I don't think you guys said Whole Foods, but Whole Foods is owned by Amazon, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, right? So Joanna, you got that one. And I saw a lot of people saying the FBI. So yeah, all of these different organizations, companies, corporations, they all want to access our information so that they know what we're doing so we can't harm their profits. That's the bottom line. So the FBI and other organizations, governmental organizations, will try to secure our information and make it impossible for us to um, not be tracked. But there are ways around it, and we'll get into that a bit later. So that's a pretty good segue into our next topic, which is nonviolence. How nonviolence relates to security culture is realizing that when we speak violently or use violence in our actions, that harms the movement in a number of ways. So, using violence to fight off violence doesn't really do much to end the violence we're trying to stop. And Erica Chenoweth, who is a great researcher in the topic of movements, has stated that nonviolent movements are actually twice as likely to be successful, or more than twice as likely to be successful as violent movements are. So these different corporations and organizations that are up against us recognize that, and they know that when we are nonviolent and perceived as nonviolent by the public, we are our strongest because that draws sympathy from them. And it also is effective because more people can get involved if you're nonviolent. So if your grandmother and your 5-year-old daughter can get involved in a march or a demonstration that's completely peaceful and nonviolent, then you can get more people out there. And they know this. So when we are being nonviolent, we are at our strongest, and these different corporations and organizations will try and get our information, and they will definitely it will definitely cause more repression in the long run as we do gain traction and show that we are consistently nonviolent. So we have to question everybody, but we have to assume good faith, right? So friends may be at a potluck, or maybe in COVID times on a Zoom call, potluck, and they may be joking around, especially if they're activists, about various things like um, burning down an animal laboratory. And they may be saying this because they're angry, or they would like to end all of this exploitation, but it is violent language. So we have to assume at all times that we are being recorded, especially when we have our phones and our laptops around us listening all the time. So when we are um, when we are speaking with our friends, whether they be activists or not activists, and especially online. So when we make posts and we may be feeling very frustrated or angry, and we make a post or see a post of someone expressing these concerns or these ideas of burning down a laboratory, or another example, it endangers our movement because um, these groups are looking for us to cause violence so that they can use that against us. And not only that, violence is not going to help us end violence, like I said earlier. So conspiracy is the act of planning to do a crime beforehand, and any messages like um, saying, I'm going to get arrested tomorrow because I'm going to break into a slaughterhouse, or I'm going to burn this facility down, that is proof that can be used against you, especially if you post it online publicly, as well as if you message it to someone through Facebook Messenger, or text it to someone, call someone, and talk to them about it. So we want to make sure that our communications are nonviolent. And then also with our friends, if someone does say this, we do have to call them in. So call in culture is assuming the best from a person, assuming that they don't actually know that what they're saying is problematic, and trying to educate them on the topic so that they do not continue to express these ideas and endanger a movement further. So we have to be compassionate. We have to speak with our fellow activists when something like this does happen, and understand that they probably did not mean it in a literal sense, and they just are feeling some type of emotion that had caused them to say something of that nature. So we assume good faith because although we don't know if anyone is actually an infiltrator, and people may be infiltrating our movement, just because someone says something violent out of emotion, they probably aren't doing that on purpose, or recognize that that is something that shouldn't be done. And they're probably not an infiltrator, but there is a chance. But so we do have to assume good faith there. So we identify the behavior when we speak with them, and we explain to them what it is that they actually said that is problematic. And then we explain to them why it's problematic and how they can move forward to not express those ideas in the future. So this is an example of something that you can say in response to a violent statement being made online or in a message to you. and I'll just read it out real quickly. So while I respect any time anyone saves a life, property destruction and underground actions make it easier for corporations to to paint us as criminals or terrorists, rather than the liberators we aspire to be. And another example is, while our first concern should always be the conditions that make people want to do violence, we must also recognize that violence harms movement, and talking about violence like this endangers everyone. And that's for various reasons, like the ones that were outlined in these messages that you could be sending to people, or if you're in person and this does happen, you can be speaking to them directly with this message. Um, yeah. So was that awkward? That might have sounded awkward, and it might not seem like the proper response when you're speaking to someone. It may seem like an overstatement, something that doesn't really apply to the gravity of the statement that the person made that was violent. Um, it may be a joke or something like that that the person made, and this may seem really out of proportion. But it is always more awkward for a person to go to jail and have these situations escalate into public protests where people are actually being violent and have legal repercussions, instead of calling it out and nipping it in the bud um, at the beginning of wherever you see it. So I'm going to ask another question. Does anyone know the name of this person and what he did? Sanjeev says infiltrator. Yes. Does anyone have any other information on this character? Yes, Madhu. Um, this individual, his name is Paul McComb, and he worked for SeaWorld, and he was paid by SeaWorld to act as an activist or a protester, and join activist groups and infiltrate the movement against SeaWorld. So this was discovered and it was posted all about. But to make a long story short here, Paul McComb would join these protests and he would then state things like, we should burn this place down in reference to SeaWorld, or we should gather up our pitchforks and torches and in reference to destroying the SeaWorld facility. And this was in an effort, especially considering him being paid by SeaWorld to join these activists, to incite violence. And that way, they the activists would go to jail, and SeaWorld would have an in saying, hey, these activists are violent. They don't actually believe in the cause that they are saying they fight for, whatever it may be. And it can really have horrible legal repercussions for everyone involved if a person does actually act on the violence and the violent statement that this individual, or any infiltrator for that matter, of a movement has said. So you can see in this photo, posted by PETA, Paul McComb was actually arrested with activists. And you wouldn't necessarily think that a person being arrested with you, especially if they're that committed, would be someone who is an infiltrator. That level of commitment, being arrested and knowing you're probably going to get arrested from a protest, usually states, or usually activists come to the understanding that everyone doing that is most likely going to be of good faith. But it's not always true. So again, although we should assume good faith, we also should practice these security culture measures, just because um, if we are practicing these measures, people like Paul McComb have their actions limited in terms of how much impact they can have on the movement itself. So with that, I will get into cybersecurity and talk a bit on the precautions you can take in order to keep yourself safe on the internet. So I have a little picture of the Illuminati right there for a conspiracy, and a message right there that I did not send that says, "Are you ready to get arrested tomorrow?" So you can see, if you're on Facebook long enough, you'll probably be able to tell that that is Facebook Messenger, and that is a prime example um, of a statement that can lead to a conspiracy charge, because Facebook has access to these messages, and if police get a search warrant for your phone, they can go into your phone and go through your messages and see this person planned to get arrested tomorrow, and also the person who they were messaging, maybe it's in a group chat, they all were planning to do this. So on top of the charges that they were arrested for, if they were successful in getting uh, arrested, they would have a conspiracy charge as well. Or if this message was intercepted, police could have halted the protest from the beginning, and the activists wouldn't have been successful. So for that reason, we used encrypted messaging apps. So one of them is WhatsApp, and the other is Signal. With WhatsApp, you do have to take it with a grain of salt in terms of whether or not you should be using it in place of an app like Signal, because it is owned by Facebook, and it also lacks some key features that Signal does have that make Signal much safer. So Signal has disappearing messages, so you can set a timer in the app and set it to, I believe the shortest time is 5 seconds, all the way up to a week, or just have the feature off. So when you do turn on disappearing messages, you will be able to have your messages will effectively go away after the time that you set. And even if a person got a hold of your phone, like if they were to go onto WhatsApp or a Facebook messaging app, even though WhatsApp is encrypted, without this feature, someone who got a warrant will be able to go through your phone and find these messages. But if you were to have Signal as your default messaging app with disappearing messages, they would just see a blank screen. Maybe they would see the timer being set in your window, but they wouldn't actually be able to recover any of the messages. The other key feature is it's end-to-end encrypted, so it's safer in terms of not being hacked by individuals who might want to intercept your information. And there's a new feature with Signal that just came out. I could be wrong about this, but it updated on my phone about a month ago with a pin. So I'm not sure exactly how old that feature is, but it is relatively new, I believe. And basically, when you set your pin number, every time it asks you, I think it asks you once a week, you can reset or enter your pin to verify that it's actually you on your phone, and it makes it that much safer. So, as part of one of the last topics of cybersecurity that we'll go into today during this training, we have to be aware that while we're on the internet, there are various softwares that are tracking our information, and they also keep a data log of whatever you're searching. If you're using Google Chrome or another browser that isn't private and encrypted as well. So this is an example of a browser. That symbol is for Brave, which is a great browser because you can go into private browsing mode. It's encrypted, and it also uses Tor so that you can't be tracked. So basically, Tor opens, it's sort of like a VPN, which is something that shoots your signal off of a different location. So say you are in New York and you're searching something that you want to be safe and you don't want to get out there, that browser will then ping it off of a different location like Russia. And it's harder for you to be tracked as to where you searched it, and agencies can't really track what you searched because it's private on top of the fact that they think it's coming from somewhere else. So we have a quick break before we get into the second portion of the training. So let's take a second to breathe. And I will open up for any questions that have came up as I was giving the training.
There was a couple of quick ones. Some people were asking about the Brave browser. Was it Brave?
Yes, Brave.
Okay. And Carla asked, if you archive WhatsApp chats, can they be found and used against you?
Just like you can go into WhatsApp to unarchive them, a person with your phone, if they have a warrant, can do the same, I believe. So it's always safest to just use Signal if you are going to say something that's very sensitive. WhatsApp is okay, but for really sensitive information, I'd always suggest using Signal and nothing else, and set the disappearing messages feature on.
Cool. Um, Samuel is asking if you have any thoughts about Proton Mail.
Yeah, so Proton Mail is an encrypted email app. So it's sort of like a messenger, but for email, and it is encrypted end to end. So I'd suggest using that in place of a standard Gmail account if you do need to use email over Messenger, and you are going to be sending out information through there that is sensitive. Um, but yeah, I generally don't use an encrypted email account. I usually, if it's sensitive information, I keep it very short and send it through Signal.
I think that's it for questions for now.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Jonna, and thank you for the questions that came through. So I am now going to talk a bit about social media because it's a very big part of what we do on the internet as activists in terms of spreading our message. So I'm going to give a rather quick briefing on effective social media use and algorithms for various platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all of those great or horrible, however, whatever your opinion is of them, platforms. So the first thing is, let me go back real quick. I went a little too quick. It's This topic is effective social media use. So it actually isn't as effective as it could be if we were to be chatting in person. So although social media can be used to get our message out there widely, the connections that we form in person are always going to be a bit better and stronger than the connections that we form online. Just a little disclaimer. So I'm going to open up for a question right here. Can anyone define engagement in terms of social media? Looks like Lawrence is saying getting feedback on content. Molly's saying interacting online. Jess is saying getting people to interact. Yeah, so a lot of the comments in the chat are correct. So it's basically any interaction with the platform from the user. But in real terms of the algorithms that are at play, engagement equals time. So the more time you have to spend in order to complete an action on any given platform, the more engagement, and therefore the higher it will be pushed in the algorithms of that platform. Because the goal of any social media or any website is to keep people on that social media platform. So Facebook doesn't want you leaving Facebook. Facebook wants you to stay on Facebook forever. And the way that the algorithms work is because someone spent more time doing something, maybe they spent time messaging back and forth for 20 times in a comment section or hearted a post, um, whatever it is, they recognize that if this person did something for a long time on this post, another person is probably likely to do the same. So they push it to other people, and it draws more people in. So these are the reactions on Facebook. We're going to talk about Facebook first, and then we'll get into the other platforms. So can anyone tell me why the like reaction is X'd out? Yeah, Max. So it's the fastest to do. So just like how we were talking about with engagement equaling time, if you're on Facebook, the fastest reaction that you can give to a post is just clicking the like button and scrolling by. But if you want to get to the other reactions that are on the screen that aren't X'd out, you have to hover over the reaction button if you're on a laptop, or press down on the reaction with your finger on your phone. So it takes more time to show the other reactions, and the other reactions will push your post out there further than if you were just to give a like. So if there's something that you really like, heart it or laugh at it or wow at it, don't give it a like. Cool. So can anyone maybe tell me why the sad reaction has a red X and the angry reaction has an orange X over it? Yeah, actually, Josh beat me to the question. So I heard if you sad or angry react, it makes it seem less. So that's completely true. So um, just like how Facebook recognizes that if you have to hover over the reaction button to get to these other reactions, it causes you to spend more time on it. And that's good for the algorithms. It also takes into account emotions. So if a post makes someone sad, they're less likely to engage with it, even more so than if they're angry, because anger can turn into frustration, and that can lead to a really big spiral in the comment section. But the sad reaction is the most dangerous in terms of pushing out a post through the algorithms and boosting it. Angry is bad, but it's not as bad as sad. So in general, go with the love, the laugh, or the wow reactions, unless it's a post that you don't really like. So, can anyone give me an example of a post that they saw recently that they maybe gave a heart to, or something that would inspire them to do that? Cuddly animals, happy animals at sanctuary. Looks like we're all animal activists, animal rights activists here. Um, seeing that animals were placed. Anything Rose's Law. Yeah, so great stuff there. So any of that would definitely get us to heart react a post, right? So let's move on to the next one. What's an example of something that has made you sad on Facebook, or something that you would react sadly to? Sanjeev is saying slaughter. Carl is saying Ahmad Arbery. Yeah. Child being hit. Yeah, animal death. Um, Yeah, so a lot of these examples will definitely make people sad, and even if they do react to the post, they'll probably be scrolling away from it pretty quickly. Um, so it's definitely not going to be boosted in terms of the algorithms. And then something that made you angry, anything Trump says, government spelling out big ag, animal abuse on TikTok, um, active violence. Yeah. All of that would make people angry, definitely. And unless you're trying to inspire anger in a post, you're definitely going to see a lot of people turning away from your post, and you're not going to get a whole lot of interaction on it. Unless you get a whole bunch of stuff happening in the comments section. You have to remember the comments are also engagement because it takes time to type. So if something does make you angry, it might cause a big reaction in the comment section, which would boost the post, but it's not getting boosted because of the angry face reactions. Um, that being said, these emotions, when they're being taken into account by the Facebook algorithms, like I said, it's not the only thing that's being taken into account. And with the angry reaction itself, if your post inspires anger in a person, so making someone angry about an issue, like factory farming or Ahmaud Arbery, making someone angry so that they take action, that's different than your post actually making someone angry at your post. So, like, if I'm angry at a post, it's a bit different than if I'm angry at an issue that the post is about. So, if you're inspiring frustration and you have a call to action so someone can do something about this anger, then you're going to get more engagement versus if someone's just flat out angry at your post and hates you. So at this point, I will take any questions about the reactions and various topics about engagement, if there are any.
Carla says, is the better thing to make a sensible comment?
Yeah, so I think you're probably referring to something that would make you angry. So if you want to boost the post, I think what you're saying is if you want to boost the post, but you are angry at something, yeah, I'd say go ahead and make the comment. But if it's something that is just, a troll making a post, I wouldn't give it the time of day to do anything to that post. I just scroll on by.
So Beth says, how do we share important content that is likely to result in viewers being sad or angry? So I guess like, how do we share content that might make people react this way in a way that they will not use those little buttons, I guess?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We're definitely going to get into that a bit later on in the training. Um, so one way to do that is the content of your post. Instead of just inspiring these emotions, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do content-wise with the text and the photo um, to inspire people to do other things than just reacting.
Lawrence is wondering if Facebook considers the amount of time that people spend writing a comment or the length. So I guess, the longer the comment, in theory, the more engagement because they're on the site longer.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. So if someone like writes an essay, and we've all been there, we've definitely seen those in the comment section. I'm not exactly sure what the algorithms do numerically wise, like in terms of how much it's boosting, but I'd imagine it would. With the comment section, what they like to see is repeat views and repeat comments. So if you have something going on in the comment section with a really big conversation, that's going to be um, much more heavily boosted. So if you're like 20 repeat speaking points back and forth with multiple people, that's definitely going to be better with the algorithms versus just typing out one long post. So if your goal is to boost the post, I'd go ahead and just post a bunch of shorter comments instead of a long one.
That's a good tip. There was one more question. Oh, yeah. So Bailey was asking if you could give examples of when to properly use each type of reaction.
Yeah, so I mean, I just go with my emotions, right? So like if I'm happy about something, I don't ever like something, but if I'm happy about something, I will use the laughing face or the heart or the wow. Um, if again, I don't even like use the sad emoji or the angry face just because it will, um, you know, it'll push something down in the algorithms. But yeah, I think you have to just use your intuition on when you should use which reaction.
Cool. I think we can move on.
Yeah, yeah, I think we should probably move on. Again, we are taking like a running list of questions that do come up that aren't addressed. So towards the end, if we do have a bit of time, we can go over those.
Actually, one quick thing is people are asking if it's better to use sad or angry on like pro ag things or if it's better to just not engage with it at all.
Um, so angry or sad, definitely you can use it on a post like that, but I wouldn't necessarily drag that into sharing that post to a vegan group so more people interact with it or sharing that or commenting on that post. I just leave it as reaction because not everybody knows this information. So if you share it to a group of like 1,000 vegans in a Facebook group and they all go and interact with it, it's going to boost the post. So you don't want that. Um, yeah, I just either leave it alone or give it a sad reaction or something like that.
Cool.
Cool. Thank you guys for the great questions. Yeah. So again, with the emotions of different posts, when you have something that gets blocked, you've probably seen like a petition or an image of some type of action being blocked by Facebook. That's not because Facebook is some moral force that wants to rid the internet of horrible images. It's because they recognize that people who see these images are going to not want to engage with them and they remove them for that reason. They can try and tell you that it's a different reason, but it's just for the algorithm. And then we talked about comments a bit already, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But again, um, having conversations in the comment section is a really good way to boost a post. One little detail is if you are being effective and say you're like on the DXC main page and you have hundreds of thousands of followers and you get a bunch of people on this post commenting, you're also going to get trolls commenting. So instead of just ignoring them, you can mindfully just reply with something that will get them to angrily reply back 10 times. Don't waste too much time on them, but the trolls will actually help you boost your post. And the other thing you have to remember is not to disclose any information, obviously, on any of these platforms, especially to trolls, um, as per the security culture portion of this training that I talked about. And then sharing something definitely helps in terms of boosting the post. You don't necessarily want to just copy a post and then make your own. You want to share the original because the number of shares is factored in to the algorithms. And then we're going to get into videos. So there are a few different rules in terms of how you can help your video get out there. Um, So I'll get into that. So you want to keep it as a square, just like this photo, and you want to keep it 3 minutes actually, sorry, 3 minutes or longer, or else it won't really be pushed into the algorithms that well. And that's because anything less than 3 minutes for a video, Facebook is going to say it's not really that long of a video. They're not going to have a lot of engagement on that. So even if it's not like the most amazing 3 minutes, the 3 minutes plus will definitely help out in terms of boosting. You do want to shoot for it to be interesting though, or else no one's going to watch it. And then you want to have some captions because fun fact, 80 to 85%, I can't remember the exact number, of videos posted on Facebook are actually watched without sound. And the same thing goes for Instagram. So if you've ever been scrolling through your newsfeed and you've seen a video and there's no sound playing, but you see it rolling, that's why. So Facebook actually counts anything 3 seconds or longer as a view. Views that are kept for a longer period of time are favored over views that are shorter. So like watching a video for 10 minutes is better than watching a video for 5 seconds. Um, but yeah, you want to make sure that it's captioned so people get an idea of what it is and it captures them into that video instead of just scrolling on by. And you also want to remember that 3 seconds is the average view time, 3 to 10 seconds. So you want to have the most impactful imagery in those 3 to 10 initial seconds of your video so that people consistently watch it and come back to it. And Instagram really like when people come back to watching a video after they've already seen it a few times. So you don't want it to look like this. You don't want it to be a rectangle. You want to crop it to be a square. And the reason for that is because Facebook actually owns Instagram, so the algorithms have overlapped in some areas, and Instagram videos are square, as many people know. So that is sort of that's the reason why if you can crop a video into a square format, it's better for Facebook or Instagram either. And you don't want it to be crazy pixelated. You want it to be clear like this one was. Cool. So before actually I'll just go over this really quickly. I was gonna ask for questions, but um, you want to post at certain times of the day. You want to make sure that you're posting not at like 2 a.m. or 9 p.m. when people are starting to go to bed, but you want to post sort of when people are going to be on their phone. So a good rule of thumb is to think, when am I using my phone or checking it? And that's when you want to have something posted or scheduled to be posted. So early in the morning, 8 or 9 a.m., you want to post whatever it is you're posting because that's when people are just waking up. They're going to be checking their phones after they've gotten ready in the morning. Um, in the afternoon when people are going to be eating lunch, and towards the end of the night when people are winding down, ready to go on their phones, watch a movie, eat dinner, whatever it is. So no earlier than that time and no earlier than 8 a.m. I'd say, and no later than like 9 p.m. If you really want to boost your post, and that's just because of traffic on the internet. So the most people are on the internet at those times. And then certain days are actually better than others to post. So if you have a really engaging post that you're saving up, you want to save it for a weekday, and you don't want to save it towards the weekends because people are actually not checking Facebook. The data shows at least on the weekends as much. Just like when people aren't at work, if you email somebody on Sunday, they're probably not going to open it until Monday or Tuesday or whatever. And you don't want to overdo it either. So if you're posting 10 things a day, you're overdoing it. Um, Facebook and Instagram actually keep track of previous posts that you've made in the algorithms, in terms of how they boost your next post. So if you post 10 times a day and the first nine posts got like 3 likes on each, instead of posting once and you got like 50 likes on that post, the next post you're going to make after you've made those nine initial very little viewed posts is going to be pushed even less in the algorithms versus if you just make that one or two posts a day that you got a lot of reactions on. So before I go on, I'm going to open up for some more questions.
A quick one that Carla asked is if you could recommend an app or program to crop or make videos for posts.
Yeah, I think everyone has their own preference. There's definitely a bunch of free apps that you can use. So there's like iMovie, there's Final Cut. I think there's a free version. Some of them do cost money. Um, and then there's another one that I use. It's called Power Director. It's like a $5 a month subscription. So I do it instead of buying like Final Cut Pro, which is much more expensive. So yeah, there are a bunch of different apps. It's sort of it's whatever your budget fits. But if you just search like video editor in the App Store, you should be fine and be able to get something.
Cool. Also, someone is asking if there's a way to schedule posts. I know there's a way on like a page that you manage, but I'm wondering, I don't know if there's a way on your personal account to schedule a post.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't personally post a whole bunch from my personal profile. I only post on like pages I manage. Um, but there are definitely apps out there that you can schedule a post with, or if you're on a PC, not on your phone, you can schedule a post from a page without an app. I don't think there is a way to do it from your personal profile though.
Cool. I think that's it for questions for now.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. And then for Instagram, again, making sure your video is square and clear, captioned, um, very engaging. That's a really good way to make sure that you're going to be getting a lot of engagement. Um, yeah. And then the other thing that you can be doing on Instagram is making sure that you're direct messaging people. So any of your followers, this has actually worked. And I'll reference something that Joanna introduced me with, which is the Animal Liberation Toronto conference that happened in August of 2019. um, we had cut together a video that was really quick, and I just went on the Instagram account and started messaging a whole bunch of different pages and said, "Hey, can you post this?" And then I messaged DXE, and I wasn't a DXE organizer at the time, and they took the post up because there was some DXE imagery in the video, and it got, I think, thousands of views, which was great. And it definitely, I think the numbers of um, people going to the conference went up after that. So yeah, don't underestimate messaging your followers or other pages. I mean, don't spam people because then you're never going to get anything posted from other pages and get support that way. But definitely don't discount the option either. So yeah, DMing people and also tagging others in posts helps them see it and then they can also post it that way if they like it. Twitter is a weird one. Um, I know if you guys are going to the assemblies on Saturdays, you've definitely made a Twitter account by now, and you've definitely been posting and following everybody else who's been doing that. So I'm not going to go crazy into depth about why Twitter is great, but I will touch on it. Twitter is sort of it's a platform where people don't really think of it as much as Facebook or Instagram, but it's where press and people of power, people who have influence, live on social media. So if you want to contact a writer for a newspaper that's local to your area, they're definitely going to be on Twitter. That's where journalists live. That's where anybody like politicians will go on. So definitely don't not go on Twitter. Go on Twitter and um, make sure that you try and get a bunch of followers, because the more followers you have, the higher you will be boosted in algorithms in terms of how many people see your post, not just to the number of followers, but everyone else who isn't a follower. Um, and yeah, it's a really great way to get into contact with people who can get a story about an action that you organized out. So yeah, one thing that I will touch on is the trending section of Twitter. So on the homepage of Twitter, there's a trending section, and does anyone recognize this photo? Can anyone tell me where that came from? Yeah, so Tamara's saying New York Times. I'll get into that in a second. DXC lost to Angeles Biden. George is saying Biden disruption. Yeah. So this photo was taken at a disruption as part of the Let Dairy Die campaign. You can see the sign was cut off right there. Um, and from this protest, they got a lot of media attention. DXC got a lot of media attention. So um, on Twitter for a very long time. I don't have a photo of it, but I think there is a screenshot somewhere. Let Dairy Die, the hashtag, it was trending on Twitter for a few hours, and the story got out into the New York Times, into a bunch of different very large media outlets, and it was definitely seen by a lot of people in the mainstream, not just people on the internet who are activists and looking for this kind of thing. So that actually brings us to like the other topic of social media being an echo chamber, which goes into the discussion of, is it an asset or a weakness? So is social media an asset? Yes, because you can get to a lot of people. Is it a weakness if you stay in your own circles? Yes, because you're not going to be engaging with an expansive audience and they're not going to be able to hear your message. So you have to make sure to follow the algorithms and boost your posts through them to make sure that you're not only getting to people that you know, but people that don't know you and don't have not necessarily heard of animal rights before and haven't thought of it. And that way you can engage with a much wider audience. Um, yeah. And then TikTok is something that everybody is apprehensive about using because it's a new platform, and the people on it are not necessarily looking for information. They're looking for a quick 10-second video to laugh at. But the reason why it is so powerful is because of its explosive algorithms. So basically, just like with Twitter, there's a homepage with the trending section. With TikTok, if you have a video and 10 people watch a good portion of it, so like if you have a 30-second video and people watch 10 seconds of it, 10 people do that, it then gets pushed out on the For You page, which is basically like a homepage for users on TikTok to, I believe it's like 1,000 more people, and it grows exponentially. So a bunch of videos have come from people within DXC, and they've gotten millions of views, although they are probably shorter views than normal. When you consider like a video from Facebook that's like, 10 minutes long, they're shorter views, but they are views. And you're going to get a lot of people who aren't animal rights activists that way, because even if you just stay on the video 10 seconds mindlessly and people do that by accident, it's going to get pushed out there to a bunch of people. Um, and that way, because it is such a small amount of people who have to actually watch it, if you can get 10 people that you know to watch your video for 10 seconds, you can push it out to 1,000 more people. So it's a really good way to get our message out there that we haven't really taken full advantage of yet, and I think we should. So keep that in mind of how we can make the internet stronger in our favor. Before I get into what we actually post, which was a question that we received earlier, I'll open it up for a quick section of more questions if there are any.
There were a couple questions. One, Bailey asked, why is Twitter used more by government officials and journalists?
I'm not exactly sure the reasoning behind it, but it's sort of just how it happened. And it's like if I had to guess, it would have to be because it's a short snippet of text, and that's how people communicate, sort of like texting, but on social media to everybody who's following you. Um, I don't have a better answer for you, so I'm sorry, but yeah, all I know is that there are a bunch of really powerful people and people of influence on Twitter.
Yeah, I think a lot of I think that we use Facebook the way that like people with influence and like celebrities use Twitter. Like I think most people see Facebook as like I guess either a page where you have like a personal, it's like your celebrity page and people like it, but it's not like that interactive, I guess, in the way that Twitter is for those people. But yeah, that is interesting. Someone else, I guess it was actually Bailey, also asked like about hashtags, like which hashtags we should use on posts to attract a wider audience. And I think that might be a little hard for you to answer directly because hashtags are kind of always changing. But maybe you can give some tips on how we can find that.
Yeah, definitely. Hashtags are a really good way to either ensure that you stay in your own echo chamber of activists in your community versus getting a wider audience. So deciding which hashtag you use will help you do that. I'll definitely get into that a bit more, but maybe I'll just answer it directly here um, instead of stating it later on. But if you want to engage in an audience of non-activists, non-vegans, by putting hashtag animal rights or hashtag vegan on your post, you're not going to be able to reach them through that hashtag. So doing something like making a hashtag that can be relatable to people of different groups who might also search that hashtag. Um, Without giving an example, because I'm not exactly sure, what example of a post you're thinking of is, making sure your hashtag is something that's used by people who aren't in your community. That's how you can boost it to those people. Um, Otherwise, if you're just posting without a hashtag, you're going to hit your own community. And even if you use a hashtag like Let Dairy Die without a big campaign around it, so like there's no media attention and no work behind the scenes, you're only going to reach your own audience. So using hashtags can happen in a coordinated effort, like with Let Dairy Die and how that happened, where there's an army of people online waiting and they can all just start posting that same hashtag. But yeah, apart from that, hashtags don't really do much if you're just going to be posting something specific to your own community.
Cool. I think we can move on.
Cool. So it's as simple as steps. What do I post? So social currency, triggers, emotions, public, practical use, and maybe it'll load, maybe it won't, stories. So these are the things you can think about in terms of what you're actually going to be posting. So like now that we know all of the algorithms of what we should be posting versus what we shouldn't be posting, when we should be posting, how we interact with posts, as well as how we maintain security with our social media and not engaging with people who we can't necessarily trust online because they may be infiltrators and whatnot, and not exposing sensitive information. We have to talk about what actually makes a post effective and what goes into it. So, social currency is something. Well, maybe I'll just ask, what does everyone think social currency is? Sanji says influencers. Jenny's saying how much influence you have? Question mark. Jess is saying recent hot news. Yeah. So Jess, actually, Jess, you hit it right on the head. So, um, social currency is what is going to be useful knowledge or information to a person in the given climate of um, the internet or whatever is happening in the world. So if I make a post now about something that isn't too related to COVID, chances are people aren't going to speak about it. But if I post about COVID, people are going to think, oh yeah, that's something that I can talk about because it's something current. Social currency, also the currency aspect of it is information that may be interesting as well, not something that just plays into what is going on currently, but just general information that is interesting that others may not know. So if I know something that my friend doesn't know, that'll spark a conversation, and maybe I'll message a person that I would like to see this post about because I want everybody to know this really interesting information. Um, so making your post interesting and current is sort of how you exploit social currency. Then we have triggers. So can anyone name a trigger in terms of what a trigger might be or an example of one and as how it's used in social media? John is saying the Trayvon Martin shooting, definitely. Anyone else? COVID. Yeah, so these are trigger events, but they're not actually what I'm referring to when I talk about triggers in general, in terms of what goes into a post. So trigger events are different than triggers because triggers are something that triggers an emotional response. So COVID or the Trayvon Martin shooting, those events are definitely triggers of emotions, but it's not the event itself, it's the trigger of that emotion. So if I am able to trigger um, someone to be happy and they heart my post, then that's going to push my post out there. Or if I trigger someone to become sad, so or angry but frustrated and wanting to do something about it, like the Trayvon Martin shooting that Joanna had mentioned, then it's going to get people to engage with my post more. Um, so yeah, something that makes someone feel something, that's a trigger. And then emotions, I sort of already touched on that, but we've talked about emotions a bit. Can anyone maybe give an example of an emotion that any of those triggers that were mentioned in the chat would make you feel? Fear, sad, angry. Yeah. Again, with if someone's afraid or sad, they're probably not going to really interact with a post all that much. They're going to scroll past it. Um, so that's a dangerous trigger if you're trying to boost your post. Um, inspired is a good one. Strong is a good one. I like those. So if someone feels empowered, um, like when we are all, with hundreds of people on the Saturday assemblies, we feel empowered because we're all with each other, making posts about that and including messaging like join 300 plus activists on Saturday during the Animal Liberation Online Assembly. That makes people feel strong and part of a community. So playing on that emotion. Yeah, peace is another one. So if someone feels peaceful, they're probably going to be happy about that or content and want to engage more time into a post, not necessarily share it as much because they're sort of just being, but um, it'll cause them to stay on that post if they're at peace with it. Yeah, cool. And then public. So does anyone want to define what I mean by this when we're talking about content of a post public? Available to all. Yeah, not on private account. Yeah, so both of those are touching on it. Available to be seen by anyone, not just friends, not hidden from anybody. Yeah, so that touches on one side of it in terms of making sure your post is public and viewable to everybody so that can be shared and you get a lot of people looking at it. But what it's really referring to on a deeper level is the ability for the public to interact with it, just besides just being able to see it. So if there's something um, that someone can do as a result of the post that a lot of people are doing, so like a challenge, um, a good well, not a good challenge, but a while back there were a bunch of challenges on social media, like the cinnamon challenge, and people would try and like eat a spoonful of cinnamon. A lot of people would do that because it's something approachable and public, although I don't condone that because it's dangerous. Things like that definitely are activities that are, as a result of a post, public and people can take part in them. So, what is an example maybe we can come up with as animal rights activists of something we can include in a post to make it public? Hmm. Yeah, so Bailey's asking closed captioning. Yeah, that makes it accessible, but I mean, in terms of what we can be asking people to do so that the public can engage with it and make posts about themselves. Um, Lawrence is saying signing an online petition or calling or emailing someone, definitely. Um, Relevant events of the day. Yeah, so if there's something relevant and there's a call to action there, so like call your senator or send an email to this corporation, you're definitely going to engage with the public and get a public reaction or response from it. Um, yeah, call to action, definitely. Post pictures of sighting of birds or animals. Yeah, that can sort of go into a challenge of maybe we can talk about the activist challenge. There's been that going around where activists are posting photos for 10 days of different actions. And that's something that's public. That's an example that's tangible and we're actually doing because we're all animal rights activists. So another one that sort of went away, at least from my perspective online, is we used to see a lot of these um, posts where it would be like a puzzle or a test or like how many ducks are in this photo or how many threes are in this photo. I haven't seen too many of them recently, but yeah, that's definitely something public that people are getting behind or we're getting behind. And then practical value. So something that can actually be used. So this is sort of like it goes hand in hand with social currency, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Um, so if there's practical value in doing something, it may or may not be interesting, like social currency is. So if there's like an interesting fact, that would be something that's engaging social currency. Practical value is literally what it is. It's something that people can use. It doesn't have to necessarily be interesting, but that would be something like baking a cake or a vegan cake online and posting that. That's something people can use if they need a recipe. Um, in terms of boosting a post, making sure that it's practical and people can actually do something with it. That's a way to make sure people engage with it. And then the last one is story. So can anyone maybe try and explain what I mean by that one? Nancy's saying sharing something that happened to you, another, or a group. Our personal experiences. Molly's saying, Beth is saying the dodo does a great job of telling a story. Yeah, so it looks like everybody is sort of saying a similar thing. So if there's a storyline for someone to follow when they're looking at your post, then it's definitely going to cause them to keep reading or keep viewing your video if it's a video. So if there's no storyline, it's just a bunch of ideas jumbled together, people aren't going to necessarily engage with it a lot. If it's something that people can relate to, and it has a flow, then people are definitely going to either want to or be able to follow it better and therefore spend more time on it. And that'll make sure that other people see it as well. And then the last one, it's not on these steps that I had put on the previous slides, but it's visual. So does anyone want to maybe describe what I might mean by that? Yeah, Jess is saying always use an image, not just words. Um, Max is saying people like pictures more than text. Beth is saying it's more important than text. Yeah, so um, making sure that you include something that's eye-catching instead of just a few paragraphs. People are just going to scroll past that immediately. So although that's not one of these steps, it's definitely something that we should all be including um, to make sure that our posts are being pushed out and seen by people and really catching their eye. So we touched on this one a bit, which was scheduling posts. This is an app that you can use if you manage a page, and you can post on a page and schedule. And you can also link your Instagram and Facebook account so that you can manage both of them as well as the messaging from both of those apps in the same place instead of having to go to two or three different apps. So that's really useful if you do manage a page. Um, yeah, and then thank you for coming. So I'm going to open up for questions and then we'll conclude. So we have about 15 minutes for questions.
So if you have any questions for Dan, feel free to leave them in the chat and I can read them out. Or if you would like to speak and ask your question, or if you want to, engage in more of a conversation, you can put a little star in the chat just like this, and I will unmute you and then you can speak. So I did see a couple questions. So Max asks, does Facebook do sentiment analysis of comments to detect sadness, anger, and deprioritize them similar to reactions?
I've never heard of that. So I think what you're saying is like, does Facebook actually read the comments that you're posting and see if it would maybe inspire a sad emotion or an angry emotion? I've never heard of them doing that. I wouldn't put past them in terms of what they're trying to do, but I don't think that they do that because of all the sheer amount of comments and posts that are going out. I don't think they would have the manpower or the ability to see if something would make someone angry or sad or happy.
So Josh is asking if Instagram promotes IGTV videos more or normal videos.
Yeah, so just with like the 3 minute rule of making sure your video is 3 minutes or longer on Facebook, um, that's sort of because of the fact that Facebook wants you to see the videos that are longer in terms of spending more time on those videos, and Facebook owns Instagram. So it's the same type of algorithm as well as IGTV. People they want you to use the IGTV app because you get more time spent within the Instagram framework. So and an IGTV video, something longer than a minute, is definitely going to do better than something shorter than a minute on Instagram.
So Beth asks if you can please share more about how to word a post that is likely to elicit sadness or anger in a way that will boost its visibility more. So I guess like, how do we post about things that maybe would normally people's reaction would be like the angry face or the sad face? And how can we, draft those posts in a way that is more likely for people to engage with them in a positive way?
Hmm. Yeah, um, that's a really interesting question. So the way you can do it is phrase it in a way that makes phrase you have to sort of spend time thinking about how you're actually phrasing, but you can include some of the various steps in there. So social currency or public, you can include a call to action. So if someone is angry, they may be inspired to take a call to action more seriously and follow through versus if they aren't. So instead of someone being angry at your post, they may use that anger and go out and do something, um, which is positive. But I guess I would have to like read a post that you're drafting if I were to comment on whether or not the phrasing is okay.
Yeah, Max suggested in the comments maybe asking explicitly for people to comment on the post. That's a good idea. Something that came to mind when you were speaking about that, Dan, is like the Ahmaud Arbery cases, or the case and like kind of the social media situation that came out of that. Because I think if you were posting like posts of like the video of what happened to him or just people explaining, like that's probably something that a lot of people would react with an angry or sad face to, because it's like, whoa, this like really bad thing happened, and like how is this still happening to people? But then they kind of turned it into this, it's like a call to action where it was really actionable for people, and it was like, run, what was it, 2.3 miles or something, like on his birthday. And so you could make this post that's kind of framed in a bit more of like an empowering, inspirational way. um, so something that maybe it's a sad topic and it's really upsetting what happened to him, it's turned like the way that you frame it and post about it is like, hey, like I did this thing to raise awareness, and like, you know um, you can do it too. So I don't know, that was one thing that came to mind of just, I guess, a way to take something that's sad and gets that anger moving in people, and create posts that are a little bit more, um, it makes people feel like they can do something that's meaningful and not just have to be angry about it.
Yeah, definitely. And you definitely see that in bigger pages like Now This Media when they post something. You if you look at the reactions, you'll see like thousands of reactions, but the ratios are there. So you can see like there's like a lot more heart reactions and likes than there are sad reactions to something. Um, and that is sort of because people may be happy that you're posting about an issue. So they're happy that the issue is being spoken about, period, versus being angry that the event in the video happened. So that's another way to look at it.
um, so Samuel is asking if you have any thoughts on Reddit or Reddit algorithms.
Um, I have I've probably searched Reddit like once in my life. I've never used it very extensively. Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to ask a question about Reddit algorithms.
I would be interested in talking to you more, Samuel, about Reddit, because I think I've never really used Reddit that much, but it seems like a good place on the internet to be like, to just be for animal rights, to like have a community and be like recruiting people and talking about things. So maybe I'll put my Facebook in the comments and you can, or in the chat, and you can message me if you want to talk about it. And anyone else too, we can make like a Reddit chat group. um all right, I'm just trying to scan the chat here for any more questions. Sana, I hope I'm saying your name right, says, "Is it good to raise awareness through posting pictures of the way companies produce animal-based products?" So I guess, posting pictures of the violence and animal suffering.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there are like a few different ways you can look at that one. So depending on whether or not you're talking about like actual slaughterhouse footage versus like the gross factor of how things are made. So like a while ago, there was a really big media story about pink slime, how hot dogs and chicken nuggets were made with this pink slime. And it really played on that social currency factor as well as the emotional factor. So like people were like grossed out by it, right? And it was also an interesting thing that people knew about. So it's something that was like behind the scenes and was uncovered, and people started to learn about it. So it played on the social currency. Um, in terms of posting a picture of a slaughterhouse, like, an animal being slaughtered, I'm not exactly sure um, that that would inspire someone to engage with your post a lot. Um, because when I scroll through my feed on various platforms, I will see those, and I'll check the amount of reactions or comments, and it will be very minimal. Versus like if you have a photo of someone locking down a slaughterhouse, and then it inspires people to say, "Hey, we're actually doing something about the issue." Um, I think you have to be careful with the emotional side of things when you're posting graphic imagery.
Yeah, I think this is a good example to draw it back to that question about basically like how do we post things that might be upsetting to people in a way that will create positive engagement. And posting images or videos of animals at a vigil or something like suffering, or photos from inside the slaughterhouse, like that's probably more likely to get some of those negative reactions. But maybe posting like a photo of like a vigil and like people there and what it looks like to be part of this community who's like bearing witness to these animals, that might be a little bit more of a positive framing. And I think it includes some of those steps things that you were talking about in terms of like it being like it's like this personal story, like I was there and I like this is what I witnessed. And I think that I think something that's like interesting in um, this topic is like kind of what's right and then like what's right for social media, because it's like what's right is like for people to like see these photos. Like I don't want to censor these graphic photos because like people need to see them, and I'm strategically trying to use this platform like my social media to spread awareness or empower people or grow the community or whatever it is. And so maybe I have to find ways to like balance those two things, in a like just for the sake of the social media. um,
Yeah, definitely, definitely well said. One thing before we answer a bunch of other questions, because we do have 5 minutes left, I wanted to make sure I hit one last thing that I sort of forgot to mention, which was a link. Posting a link is in the text part of your post. Links take people away from the platform you're on. So, like, if you post a link to a different website, it's going to draw people towards that website and away from Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform you're on. So in the algorithms, your post will be it will be down regulated, and you're not going to see a boost there because they want you to stay on the platform. So that's just one thing I thought of that I wanted to make sure I got out there. And then I see a bunch of other questions. I'll probably put my email in the chat so you guys can like message me if you'd like, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Um, the other thing is I wanted to just ask you guys to maybe answer the question, is the internet an asset or a weakness, or is it both? Peter is saying both, Bill is saying both, people are saying asset. Yeah, does anyone think it's a weakness? And then maybe we can talk about that for a bit. It looks like everyone's saying asset, unless it's wrong. Cool. Could be a weakness if you resort to anger. Yeah, so again, you want to make sure you're in control of your own emotions if you're trying to inspire other people to feel a certain way. Jess is saying I have hid people because their posts were too gross. Yeah, exactly. So not even just with algorithms, if you're I'm sure there's probably something where Facebook or Instagram, if you hide someone or block someone enough times, they'll like, down regulate that person for everybody else. But definitely just on your case, um, you're not going to see that post, and people are who also feel the same way as you are probably also going to block or hide, and they're not going to see it. So yeah, making something gross or graphic might not be the best way to inspire someone to engage with you. But yeah, if there are any other questions, we do have a bit more time, and I can stay on a bit after the end time. So if you'd like to stay on and ask more questions, I'm free to do that.
It looks like there's still a little bit of confusion about the posting links thing, what you said. So maybe you could just clarify that.
Yeah, so if you post a link in the text part of your post, people can click on it and it will take you away from whatever platform you made the post on. So the platforms want you to stay there. They don't want you to leave Facebook. They don't want you to leave Instagram. So if you post a link in the text portion, the social media platform is going to downregulate your post in the algorithms. You're not going to get as much engagement. Um, yeah, so what you can do is you can, if it's a short link, you can include it in like a photo, like put the actual text of the link in a photo if you can edit the photo and then post it with that photo, or you can post it in the comment section.
Beth is asking, how can I help my activist friends learn more about security culture and boosting social media if they didn't attend this workshop?
You can talk to them about it. So that goes back to like the three things that I had mentioned, as to how we make it a culture versus just a practice, which is one of them being the trainings, right? And there are other trainings online that you can go to or send people to. Um, the other is just using it. So the practice that you gain from actually using it in, firsthand and gaining experience, and then having conversations about it. So talking to your friend about it from what you know, and then maybe you can ask a question to someone who may know a bit more about it, and they'd probably be happy to answer, because if they do know more about security culture, they know that the more people who know about it, the safer we all are. So yeah, just message someone, and they'd probably be happy to help you out. And let me actually just post my personal email in the chat. Forgot to do that.
Cool. Well, it looks like I think we pretty much made it through all the questions. Madhu was asking where people can find this recording and other recordings from ALOA trainings. We are going to be posting them after ALOA is over, starting in June. So if you've registered for any of the trainings, which you probably have because you have this link, you'll get an email when the recordings are all posted. And for, I think it was Beth asking how your friends can learn more about this if they didn't attend the workshop, they can watch the video once it's posted in June. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming, and a huge thank you to Dan for leading this and stepping up. And yeah, it was great to see everyone today, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.